What's up, guys? This video I have been the most excited for in this series. We're going to be talking about hashing. Pluralsight, it's one of the first learning platforms I used as a software developer. You can get a completely free trial and start learning by following a path on pretty much anything. The learning paths combine numerous courses giving you the step-by-step path to reach your goals. Or you can find individual courses on pretty much anything. Maybe you want a class on cryptography, security, Python programming, networking, maybe Java, you name it, and they probably have it. I can genuinely say that Pluralsight helped me advance my skills and my career. I'll leave a referral link in the description, go check it out. Yeah, so this is actually really important for software developers and technology people because this is used quite commonly. If you're new to these concepts, then this is also going to help you in classes such as data structures and algorithms because there's things called hash tables and so forth. And it's also going to help you with new emerging technology such as Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies because there's hashing that goes on with that. It's also going to help you with other things. Oh, I got a good one for you. It's also used for certificates. So when there's an exchange of a certificate, there is hashing involved in this situation. It says SHA256, which is a form of hashing. We'll get into that in a moment. But that's another use, and I'm sure you'll see it all kinds of other places. So before I get way too into the weeds here, let's even just talk about what even is a hash. You can think of it as, well, it's an algorithm, but you encapsulate an algorithm in a function. And a function takes an input and gives an output. And the special thing about a hash is that it's going to take an input that makes sense, and it's going to output something that doesn't make any sense. But it's always going to give you the same exact output. And the value here is that you can use this to basically confirm that the original data was not modified. Because if you change the original data just a little bit, the output is going to be completely different. Now, one common use of a hashing function is inside of a database. If you want to store people's passwords, but you don't want to actually have their passwords in plain text, and you don't want to have the ability to go read people's passwords, you can actually hash the data. Then, when they go to enter their username and password, you can then hash whatever they put into the password field, and if it matches, you're good. But you can't have a hacker go in there and steal everybody's passwords because they're not written in plain text, and they can't easily figure out the input. So if you want to play around with hashes, you can probably just find a website that'll hash data for you, or you can use something such as dbfiddle, and you can type in database commands. So for example, we're using MySQL here, and what you can do is you can say select, let me just zoom in here a little bit for you. And then what you can do is say SHA2, which is a particular hashing algorithm. And what we're going to do is pass in the data we want to hash. Let's say your password is password. And then you use a comma. And then you say the number of bits you want the output to be. So we'll say 256. And then we will say run. So this is the output down here. It's in hex or hexadecimal. Now here's the magic thing in here. If someone goes in here and they just change their password just by one character, so we uppercase the P, let's take a look at our output. We start with a 5 and we end with an 8. When we run this thing, the new hashed output starts with an E and ends with an A. So we get a totally different hash, and there's no predictability about this. But here's the magic thing. If we use the same input, we'll get the same hash every single time. So if I run this again, you can see each time I run this, I'm going to get the exact same output. So this is how you would build a username and password system on a website or some other application. You would probably want to hash their password so that you're not storing it in plain text. Now here's something to confuse you. When you go and check out a certificate, you can see that there is some hashing going on. So in the details, you will see SHA256. So why was it that in MySQL we were using SHA2 and this is using SHA256? Is this like 254 better than SHA2? No, and this is where the naming is a little confusing and kind of obnoxious, but whatever, we're gonna deal with it. So the 256 here deals with the bits, and this just kind of reminds me of like the Xbox 360 and then they upgraded to like the Xbox One. That's like a 359 downgrade. Like, it's just weird. Anyways, the SHA256 is actually a form of the SHA2. So inside of MySQL here, we're using the SHA2 function, and we're specifically going for the 256-bit variation. So we could go in here and say 512, which is another variation, and then when we run this, we should get an output that is twice as long. So that is even more hard to figure out the input. So I know this isn't a MySQL tutorial, I'm not about to do that, but it is a pretty good way to get familiar with some of these. You will see there's AES, encrypt and decrypt, which we talked about AES earlier on in this series. There's also DES, which we didn't talk about, but that's a thing. And then you can see down here we have SHA1 and SHA2. So SHA2 was like the 2.0 of SHA1. Obviously, it was like an improvement. And there was a couple variations, one being SHA256. So if you want to touch on data structures a little bit, a hash table, the way it works is it'll take whatever you're trying to put in the collection and it will hash it to figure out what index of the array to put it in. So for example, John Smith goes through the hash function and it goes into the index 02, and then Lisa Smith goes into 01 and Sandra goes into 14. Now, one of the big issues with hash functions is that there's so many different hash output possibilities, like 2 to the 256 if we're using 256 bits, but even with 512 it's even more. But usually the data structure you're storing this information in, such as this array, only has so many indexes to store that data in. So what you have to do is you have to figure out how to correlate the hash output to a particular spot in that collection. So maybe you grab a particular set of digits, or maybe you use a modulus operator or some kind of transformation to figure out what index to put it in. And because there's less index possibilities than total hash outputs, you have to deal with conflicts. So what happens if two people get the same index? And that is something that people put a lot of time studying with hash tables, and you'll probably get into that in a data structures class in a university. But back to the MySQL thing, you'll see this MD5. This is another hashing method. So what we can do is we can try this one out. Let's just replace SHA2 with MD5, get rid of the extra argument passed in, and we will run this. And you can see we get a hash. But the problem is MD5 is considered outdated. So of the options here, if you're gonna do a hash, I recommend SHA2. And of the options here, I'd probably go with SHA256. And that should be more than enough hashed for practical use. So the MD5 is part of a series known as MD. The SHA2 is part of a series known as SHA. So there's different families of hashing algorithms and then different improvements on those. So there was MD4, and then they came out with MD5, and then there was SHA1, and then they came out with SHA2, and so forth. So in the context of digital signatures, we're going to have a message, and we're going to have a private key, and then we're going to need a hash function, which is going to basically prevent people from figuring out that original private key, but that can be used to verify that it was sent from Elise, or that Elise had the permission to send the message. In the context of Bitcoin, this is where the digital signatures comes up. So in order to create a transaction and send somebody Bitcoin, you have to own this Bitcoin. So in Bitcoin, there's a hash of something to be signed plus a private key. This something to be signed is essentially that transaction, and the output here is a signature. And because your private key is used in that signature, if anyone else was to try to make that, they're going to have a different signature output. So there's no way to forge spending your Bitcoin. Hashing is also used in Bitcoin mining, and now I'm just getting really down into the details of this, but basically, so they use SHA256, and in Bitcoin mining, basically, you have to guess an input to get a particular output in this hash function. Not all outputs are made available, only certain ones. Anything less than a particular target value, if we did all of the possible hashing outputs, that would be pretty terrible, because it would take forever, because 2 to the 256 is like infinity. So you have to basically guess a number under whatever that target is. And we'll get into that stuff later. I'm getting off topic here. So yes, that is your introduction to hashes, hash tables. We talked a little bit about storing passwords in databases. We talked about how the hashes are involved in digital signatures. We touched a little bit on Bitcoin signatures and basically how it can be used to verify that you're allowed to spend a coin. And we even talked a little bit on Bitcoin mining. So we covered a lot of different things in this episode, and we still only scratched the bare surface. So that's why when I started this, I was like, oh man, I gotta learn all this stuff. And then after studying and doing notes for what felt like eternity, I was just like, stop. We just gotta do the videos. I'm never going to have this stuff mastered. And if I wait till I do, I'll never create this video series. So obviously, I probably have a lot more to learn, but I'm sure you guys can help me in the comments and we can help each other learn different things. So let me know what you thought and if you've enjoyed this little series. And maybe I'll extend it or do a part 2 series. Let me know what other topics you'd like to hear about. And don't forget to subscribe. That really helps out this channel. I'm up to like 170,000 subscribers, which is just crazy because I remember doing videos talking and being like, guys, I'm up to like 500 subscribers. It's crazy. And now I'm like way more. But I definitely do gotta get to 1 million before the end of the day. So please be sure to hit that subscribe button